Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. We are now at the midway point of the NFL season, and so far this year we've seen a lot of strange things happen. But some of the games we'll be looking at in this show are among the strangest of the year. No less than one half of last week's games were upsets. And how do you account for that, or can you, Tom?
I don't think I can. I do think it's the preparation, though, by the coach. You get a young Pastorini. Houston knocked off Cincinnati, and I think if they get the right offensive game plan going, the young talent's there, and they've been blowing people out of it.
And New Orleans beat Philadelphia last week. That was a shocker.
Yeah, and the fans let them know it down there, yeah.
Yes, they did. The game we saw, St. Louis over Washington, could you consider that an upset?
Boy, we've been thinking that all year, but the Cardinals are very smooth, and boy, Jim Hart is a new quarterback, isn't he? He looked great.
They impressed us.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with This Week in the NFL after this message.
To avert a flood of wires and letters from you St. Louis Cardinal fans, let me say we agree that Coach Coryell has done an incredible job so far this year. But highest honors for a coach also have to go to Charles L. Fairbanks of the New England Patriots. With the likes of his schedule, many people were surprised when he didn't support the players' strike. Instead, he has created the ongoing story of David and Goliath. And last week in Minnesota, the Vikings were certainly Goliath.
While hardly a Goliath figure, Fran Tarkenton's appetite for victories is known to be gigantic. And having lost his usual repast last week to the Lions, he was doubly voracious when the Patriots came calling. But far from jumping in the pot like good little guests, the Patriots began treating Tarkenton himself like an hors d'oeuvre. And times were lean for the Tark machine through three quarters, as three Viking drives were blunted by near-goal line interceptions, two by Ron Bolton and one by number 45, Jack Mildren. And in the final stanza, the Vikings rose up and smote themselves when Jim Lash lost the football at the goal line and it rolled out of the end zone for a touchback. Meanwhile, after conducting one drive which yielded a field goal, Plunkett was showing all-pro cool as he picked out little Mac Heron for a 21-yard gain to the Vikings' 20-yard line. And 2 plays later, a poised and confident Jim Plunkett found Steve Schubert in pay dirt for a 10-0 Patriot advantage at the half. In the third quarter, it looked like the Patriots might run away and hide in Mrs. Wiggs' cabbage patch when Burr Plunkett hit Burr Rabbit Bataha one hop behind the Vikings' Nate Wright. But the play was wiped out by offsetting penalties. And then the game's momentum began to shift as the ball began bouncing Minnesota's way. Fran Tarkenton hit Chuck Foreman with a little checkoff pass, and 37 yards later, Foreman lost the handle, only to have the ball pop right back into his arms, and the Vikings were threatening. The threat appeared extinguished when Tarkenton threw his second interception to Ron Bolton at the 1. But on the next play, at the top of the fourth quarter, the Patriots fumbled, and from 2 yards out, Chuck Foreman put Minnesota on the board, making the score Patriots 10, Vikings 7. With less than 2 minutes left, Tarkenton hurled desperately deep for rookie Steve Craig. John Sanders was cited for interference, and the Vikings had first down at the Patriot 3. On the next play, Tarkenton bootlegged in, and Minnesota led for the first time 14-10. Nobody says it isn't as hard to win gracefully as it is to lose. But the unsportsmanlike conduct which followed got both Tarkenton and his primary tormentor of the afternoon, Ron Bolton, thrown out of the game. With 20 seconds remaining in the game, Jim Plunkett incredibly found Randy Bataha running free. And with a first down at the Minnesota 10, the game was not over. An incomplete pass left 8 seconds on the clock. Then Plunkett stepped back and coolly speared Bob Windsor, whose struggle over the goal line on this play left him a hero who's out for the year with a knee injury. But the Patriots were winners for the 6th time in 7 games, this time over Minnesota, 17-14.
Last year, Pat, when you thought of the Buffalo Bills, O.J. Simpson had to jump into mind, right?
Well, things have changed a little bit this season, Tom, because in addition to O.J., the Bills now boast the NFL's top-rated passer in Joe Ferguson, and as the Chicago Bears found out last Sunday, the AFC's #1 defense.
The Bills got 3 points early as the juice flowed easily through Chicago's scattered interior line. And when number 19, Gary Huff, finally got possession, the hungry tentacles of Buffalo's rush forced a turnover. Number 43, safety Tony Green was the interceptor, and Buffalo was in the goal position at the Chicago 13. From there, Joe Ferguson handed the ball to Larry Watkins, whose battering runs made it Bills 10, Chicago nothing. Watkins' TD was the day's final, however, as a penalty wiped out this 48-yarder to J.D. Hill. It was far from an explosive afternoon for either club, but when there was offensive excitement, it usually had something to do with number 32. But if it was a frustrating afternoon for Buffalo, it was downright gloomy for the Bears, as they could manage but 2 field goals against the Bills' defense. Standing out amongst the Bills' defenders was gargantuan defensive tackle Mike Kadish, whose stampeding rush put Huff on his duff more than once. In fact, it got so bad that poor Mr. Huff started wincing even at the sound of Kadish's presence, which was perfectly understandable as Kadish displayed a combination of disdain for quarterbacks and almost ghoulish enthusiasm that makes for inspired defensive effort. And indeed, the Bills' 16-6 victory demonstrates that the Buffalo Bills have come a long way from being just a one-man show.
In Miami, a swath of injuries has turned Don Shula's Dolphins into an almost anonymous team. Against the Colts, it was not Zonka, Morris, or Kick, but Nottingham and Malone who preserved Shula's Super Bowl visions.
In the Orange Bowl, the frisky Colts kicked up their horseshoes and tried to stomp Larry Zonka into the polyturf. But it wasn't a pad-popping stick that did Zonka in, but the treacherous green carpet that refused to yield to Zonka's change of direction. Miami not only lost the ball, but Zonka for the game with a badly wrenched ankle. Clinging to a tenuous 3-point lead, quarterback Bob Greasy went for 6 with a rainbow to rookie receiver Mel Baker. The bomb to Baker was a stride too long, and like a fish out of water, the Dolphins looked like an easy catch as Baltimore drew the net tighter on mighty Miami. The Colts gained a 7-3 lead on setback Don McCauley's surprise pass to Glenn Dowdy. But Miami roared back on touchdowns by veteran Don Nottingham and rookie Benny Malone, number 32. Malone's pretty 23-yard score iced a 17-7 comeback victory as Miami remained in contention one game behind New England and Buffalo in the AFC East.
4 games into the season, the Detroit Lions appeared to be the tough luck team of the NFL. The Lions were winless, and by a total of only 14 points, were caged in the cellar of the NFC Central Division.
Well, that's right, Pat, but since that time, Detroit has really begun to put it together. Last week against the Green Bay Packers, the fired-up Lions were looking for their 3rd consecutive win.
Number 10, Jack Concannon, found his first starting assignment as a Green Bay Packer quarterback a little less than easy. Three times the 10-year veteran fell before a thunderous barrage of blue shirts as the Lion defenders temporarily plugged the Packer cannon. But while the Detroit defense sizzled, its offense fizzled, and number 19, Bill Munson, felt the Packer crunch. Munson overcame the Packer pressure long enough, however, to put Detroit in front, connecting with tight end Charlie Sanders for 6. Green Bay retaliated with the dead-eye passing of Jack Concannon. And though this strike to John Staggers was voided by a penalty, by the 3rd period, Concannon had the Lions working to overcome a 10-9 lead. Larry Walton's touchdown put the Lions up by 6, leaving Jack Concannon the 4th quarter in which to challenge Detroit. John Brockington's catch put Green Bay in close, setting up a Concannon sneak and a 17-16 Packer advantage. With a missed conversion as the difference, it again seemed as though tough luck had befallen the Motor City men. But behind the rock-solid leadership of Bill Munson, Detroit began to make their own luck. Munson to number 89, Ron Jesse, clicked for good gainers and moved Detroit in for a last-ditch effort. Only minutes before, a Detroit field goal was blocked, and now with but 14 seconds left, place kicker Errol Mann would receive a rare second chance. Mann's 41-yarder held true to give the Detroit Lions a 19-17 win over the Green Bay Packers, while creating a 3-way tie for second place in the NFC Central.
The last time the Denver Broncos traveled to the shores of Lake Erie to face the Cleveland Browns was 3 years ago, when the then last-place Broncos upset and embarrassed the first-place Browns 27-0. Last Sunday, it was the Browns who were looking for the upset.
After a rocky start, the Denver Broncos were finally riding high with 3 consecutive victories. Against the Browns, it looked as though 4 straight would not be asking a lot. Charlie Johnson directed the game's first score toward Riley Odoms, Denver's super strong tight end. Dr. Johnson made it 14-0 with a short flip to Jerry Simmons, number 80, the 10-year wide receiver from Bethune-Cookman. Then it was Otis Armstrong's turn to chew up the Browns. The second-year Mighty Mite rushed for 142 yards and Denver's 3rd touchdown of the day. Mike Phipps gamely tried to fight back with long passes, one of which found his new starting fullback, Hugh McInnes. For the day, it was mostly frustration for Phipps, who could complete only 8 of 25 passes and was thrown for losses 6 times. The Broncos were running away with the game until a late punting situation for the Browns and for versatile Don Cockcroft, number 12. A 4th and 12 play became a 27-yard gain and set the stage for Cleveland's other quarterback, a person named Brian Sipe. Sipe's scrambling score brought Cleveland within 5 points. The defense held, and Billy Van Heusen had to punt the Broncos out of trouble. Unfortunately for Denver, more trouble was waiting in the person of Greg Pruitt. Pruitt's 72-yard return put the struggling Cleveland offense in perfect position. And in one of the most unusual quarterback sneaks in history, bouncing Brian Sipe became an instant hero. After 4 straight losses, the Browns had won an upset, 23-21. Brian Sipe, one of the least publicized of Don Coryell's San Diego Staters, was suddenly the man of the hour for Nick Scourige's Browns. As Scourige said after the game, "I may even give Sipe his own locker now."
When the Houston Oilers beat the San Diego Chargers in their opener, Pat, I thought maybe they'd used up their win quota for 74.
Well, you know, it's true, Tom, that the past 2 years, the Oilers have finished 1-13. Last week, they equaled their output of those 2 miserable seasons, and in a manner most spectacular.
For almost 3 years now, the Houston Oilers have searched high and low for the secret of a 2-victory season. Finally, last week in Cincinnati, they could yell Eureka, but not before they opened with some typical Oiler legerdemain. Finally, with the foolishness out of their system, the Houston pass rush, led by number 59, Ted Washington, stormed in and broke Kenny Anderson down. Not to be intimidated or hit again, Anderson pitched out to number 36, Linville Elliott, who hit tight end Bob Trumpy with a wobbler. Then, with improved protection, Anderson launched an Isaac Curtis seeking missile, which homed in perfectly. And now it should have been time for the famous Houston fade-out. But last week, number 7, Dan Pastorini, kept his gallants coming back. His 47-yard bomb to Ken Burrow gave Houston a 13-7 lead. The last play is nice enough to enjoy once again from another angle. The Oilers continued their aggressive style of play when number 84, Billy Black Shoes Johnson, formerly Billy White Shoes Johnson, returned to punt 49 sizzling yards. From there, it was a matter of seconds and 8 yards before number 44, Fred Willis, upped the Oiler lead to 20-7. Then would wonders never cease. Number 57, linebacker Steve Kiner, blitzed in, blasted Ken Anderson, and caused a fumble, which number 65, Elvin Bethea, recovered and hustled into the end zone to give a possible major upset the aspect of a major rout. It wasn't until midway in the 4th period that the Bengals could close to 27-14 on another Anderson to Isaac Curtis whizzer. But even then, the inspired Oilers would give no ground, and Pastorini came right back with a 35-yard scoring throw to number 20, Billy Parks. The same play from Billy Parks' angle looks a little tougher to make, but just as pretty to the viewer. With time virtually gone, the Bengals had little to salvage but their pride. So with 2 minutes left in the game, Ken Anderson once again took to the air and hit running back Booby Clark, number 42, who circled out of the backfield and into the end zone to make the final score, the battered Bengals 21, the overjoyed and improved Oilers 34. After 6 weeks of comparative failure on defense, Pat, the New York Giants dealt their #1 quarterback, Norm Snead, to the San Francisco 49ers.
They've been failing on offense, too, and to fill the void at football's most demanding position, New York traded with the Dallas Cowboys for an old familiar nemesis.
Amidst the autumnal splendor at the Yale Bowl, the Giants tried to sort out their quarterback dilemma. Should such male chauvinists break tradition and go with a girl, or maintain their image with a gorilla? By game time, it was not Fay Ray or King Kong, but former Dallas quarterback Craig Morton who would chart the Giants' football destiny. Given an inspirational boost by the presence of an old enemy turned true blue, the Giant defense savaged the Dallas Cowboys early. They blew down Cowboy runners, and twice the Giants snuffed out Roger Staubach within sniffing distance of 6 points. Trailing 7-0, Morton was inserted, and the slumbering Giants turned slivers of daylight into gaping holes. Although Morton produced no points, he unlimbered the siege gun that once was considered the mightiest in the game. However, for most of the day, Morton was a tasty morsel for his old mates. 3 times Craig was sacked, and 3 times body-to-body collisions resulted in Dallas interceptions. With the score 7-0 late in the second quarter, the Cowboys' game plan focused on number 88, Drew Pearson, the NFL's leading receiver. The offensive line rode the Giants past Staubach, who stepped up neatly in the pocket and launched a perfect shot to Drew Pearson. Leading 14-0, Dallas was going for more when Calvin Hill was assaulted by John Mendenhall and fumbled. "71 yards later, defensive end Roy Hilton had a touchdown, and New York's flagging hopes were suddenly shockingly revived. But Tom Landry turned to a trick play involving Pearson that St. Louis had used successfully against Dallas 2 weeks previous. Pearson, a converted college quarterback, took a Staubach lateral pass and forwarded it airmail special to Golden Richards. Richards' touchdown salted away a 21-7 Cowboy victory and made a shambles of Craig Morton's debut in a Giant uniform.
We're just halfway through the season, and the St. Louis Cardinals are leading the NFC's Eastern Division by 3 full games, Tom.
Incredible team right now, and it's really hard to fathom, but I guess after last Sunday's game with the Washington Redskins, the Cardinals' underdog days are certainly over.
The first pass Sonny Jurgensen threw last Sunday went directly into Cardinal cornerback Roger Worley's hands. 53 yards later, number 22 had made it 6-0 in favor of St. Louis, and once again, the mega play Cardinals were doing their thing. Leading 9-0 at the top of the second quarter, Jim Hart dropped back, and it was bingo once again. This time, it was to number 82, Earl Thomas, whose 52-yarder made it Card 16, Washington nothing. Then, with only 2 minutes left in the first half and 95 yards downstream, Sonny Jurgensen hung it all out. First to Charlie Taylor for 29 yards and breathing room. 7 consecutive passes later, it was hello, Mr. Taylor again on the St. Louis 2-yard line. Sonny completed his coast-to-coast tour with a strike to Larry Brown, which made it Skins 10, Card 16. In the third quarter, following a Washington field goal, the kickoff ill-fatedly went to Terry Metcalf. With excellent field position, Hart pitched again to Earl Thomas, who can run as well as he can catch. Facing 3rd and 8 at the 26, Hart went to Terry Metcalf, whose one-on-one confrontation with Chris Hamburger was no contest. Metcalf's magical mystery tour had done it again, and his drive-sustaining first down left the Redskins in shocked disorder. On the following play, Hart, showing a feel for pressure, moved away from danger long enough to loft the 6-pointer to number 44, Donnie Anderson, whose solitary figure in the end zone says a great deal about the dizzying effect of the multi-headed Cardinal attack. But if the Washington defense was bewildered, Sonny Jurgensen was never more right on as he pinpointed the offense downfield. In 14 plays, Jurgensen had the Redskins at the Cardinal goal, where he looked it all over before picking out number 43, Larry Brown, for a controversial touchdown that really tightened things up at 23-20, Cardinals. But with 6 minutes left on the clock, the Cardinals showed a champion's composure as they ran at will through the vulnerable Redskin defense to retain possession to the game's end. When it was over, the Cardinals' victory could be much likened to Jim Otis' clock-consuming run, in that throughout the game and season, every Cardinal player seems motivated to a maximum effort on a consistent basis. And their 23-20 victory over Washington was enough to convince anyone the St. Louis Cardinals are legitimate Super Bowl contenders, or at the very least have to be rated even against the Dallas Cowboys this weekend.
It used to be that when the Kansas City Chiefs met the San Diego Chargers, there was more at stake than just pride. Last week in San Diego, they were more like two desperate teams in search of a combination which could put some points on the scoreboard.
In recent weeks, criticisms have circulated about coaches Hank Stram and Tommy Prothro because their teams have not been able to score. Last Sunday, Dan Fouts got off on the right direction with a long pass to new receiver Harrison Davis, number 87, a rookie from the University of Virginia. Fouts followed with a fake and then another long throw, this time to a well-known receiver. And Gary Garrison was well-known to chief defenders as well. Although this bit of ghostly magic was ruled out of bounds, Fouts returned to the ghost for the game's first score. In the second quarter, Mike Livingston called on some sleight of hand of his own. A reverse to Elmo Wright, who was off to the dance. An even game was decided by two rookie runners. One of them, number 33, the sensational former quarterback from New Mexico, Don Woods. Woods rushed for 154 yards and is still averaging almost 7 yards per carry for the season. This touchdown was negated by a penalty, but Woods later ran for the touchdown, which tied the game at 14-all. While Don Woods remained among the league's rushing leaders, another rookie runner had the kind of day the Chiefs had been dreaming of for years. Number 27, first draft choice Woody Green from Arizona State now appears to be fully recovered from early season injury. Green rushed for 146 yards and caught passes for 98 more, including the game breaker from Lynn Dawson, another returnee from the injured list. The Chiefs won 24-14 for the first time in a month of Sundays, thanks mostly to a rookie runner called Wonderful Woody Green.
When the Oakland Raiders and the 49ers get together to play football, Pat, they usually bring the water and the fans in that Bay Area to a boil.
And last week was no exception, Tom, as emotion ran high in a game that shaped up to be a Raider rout, but turned out to be an excitingly close contest.
Whenever the 49ers and the Raiders get together, you can throw the book away, because theirs is always a game decided as much by emotion as anything else. Last week, the 49ers employed some trickery on their first drive as Tom Whittam ran the fake field goal to a first down. From there, quarterback Tom Owen rolled out and hooked up with running back Larry Schreiber to give the 49ers the early lead. But a minute later, the Raiders came back with a 17-yard scoring run by Marv Hubbard, number 44. The 49ers retaliated on the strong running of number 40 Wilbur Jackson, who got them in place for a successful field goal before leaving the game injured. The San Francisco defense fought valiantly to protect the slim 10-7 lead. But the Raiders, when seemingly stopped, have been known to strike with cobra quickness. A bomb from Ken Stabler to exceedingly swift Cliff Branch, number 21, should have been the beginning of the Raiders' sprint away. But the 49ers had other ideas, especially number 24, Delvin Williams, who replaced Wilbur Jackson and flew 71 yards, outracing even Dr. Death himself, to give San Francisco a 17-14 lead. For Del Williams, a first-year man from Kansas, it was his first touchdown as a pro and caused an emotional outburst that was a cross between the big winner on Let's Make a Deal and the wind-up of the Flying Adrisi Brothers act. The underdog 49ers continued to surprise the Raiders when they came right back with a Tom Owen to Terry Beasley score to increase their lead to 10 points at 24-14. And oh, how the sky-high San Franciscans reveled in dreams of victory over the vaunted arch-enemy Raiders. But with their heads in the clouds, they developed hands of clay, and number 43 safety George Atkinson pounced on Del Williams' fumble. A short score by Pete Banaszak, and then this Ken Stabler to tight end Dave Casper hookup brought the Silver and Black surging into the lead at 28-24. And with dreams of victory fleeting, the 49ers made the fatal mistake. A Ray Guy booming punt was fumbled by number 49 Ralph McGill and recovered by the Raiders' number 34 Harold Hart, who outraced McGill into the end zone to make the final tally in the Battle of the Bay Area, Oakland 35, San Francisco 24.
Year in and year out, the New Orleans Saints have been one of pro football's most unpredictable teams. And last Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles, the Saints and their fans were as unpredictable as ever.
New Orleans is a city that is generally noted for its glamour, bright lights, and stimulating nightlife. But last Sunday, New Orleans became a scene of noise and violence as the Eagles and Saints squared off for some good old-fashioned body contact. The Eagles drew first blood after a Bill Berge interception set up a scoring strike from Roman Gabriel to Harold Carmichael. Finally, in the third quarter, the Saints began to march behind the passes of Archie Manning. New Orleans moved to the Eagle 1-yard line, where a busted play became a Saint bonus, which Manning cashed in for 7. With the contest knotted at 7 apiece, Roman Gabriel generaled the Eagles into Saint territory, where a completion to Don Zimmerman and a personal foul penalty combined to put Philadelphia at the New Orleans 7-yard line. New Orleans fans liked the personal foul call about as much as General George Custer enjoyed the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and for over 20 minutes completely stopped the contest with a continuous chorus of boos. Efforts by players failed to silence the fevered Saints supporters, and finally there was little to do but to wait until the crowd of 64,000 plus simply ran out of breath. By then, the Eagles had lost their momentum, though they almost rang up another 6-pointer. Charlie Young's reception went for naught, however, as he was ruled out of bounds before he caught the ball. The Eagles came away with only a field goal for a 10-7 lead, leaving it up to Archie Manning to fashion some sort of a comeback effort for his club. Saints second-round draft choice Paul Seal, number 84, gathered in the Manning toss and placed New Orleans only 3 yards away from a win. Number 34, Jess Phillips, careened into the Eagle end zone with barely a minute remaining to finish Philadelphia in a controversial 14-10 New Orleans victory.
Thus far this year, Tom, the Los Angeles Rams have been a hard team to gauge. One week they look Super Bowl bound, and then the next week they just barely squeak by.
Last week, Pat, in New York Shea Stadium, it was their week to squeak, as they had a surprisingly difficult time with Joy and the New York Jets.
The New York Jets can do anything the New York Knicks can do, except win consistently. Although last week they did keep the Rams' James Harris from throwing effectively, they could not contain his impromptu scrambling. And it was James Harris running that gave the Rams an early 6-0 lead. But then the Jets took over on a 2-yard score by Mike Adamle and this Emerson Boozer 14-yarder. The New Yorkers maintained their 13-6 lead until the fourth quarter on the strength of a gutsy, dusty defense. But in the waning seconds of the third period, Harris finally got the sputtering Rams going. Then on the first play of the last period, Lawrence McCutcheon went in from 23 yards out to tie the score at 13. Three plays later, a Charlie Stooks interception set up another McCutcheon score, and the Rams took the lead. Then, as so often happens of late, Joe Namath, in trying to get his team back into the game, was intercepted by number 20, Steve Priest. And the Rams had victory number 5, 20-13, to strengthen their hold on the NFC Western League.
Well, I suffered last week, but I still have just a slight margin on you, 15-14.
Well, I am gaining. Don't look back.
I never look over my shoulder. Okay, how about St. Louis at Dallas? I'll give you the first shot.
Well, although we have not really been sold on St. Louis before, we saw them last week. I'm trying to get you to pick them. I'm going to take Dallas.
I'm going to pick Dallas, too.
How can I catch you if you keep doing that?
Maybe this one, Philadelphia at Pittsburgh.
I'll go with the Steelers.
I'll go with the Eagles.
Okay. Washington at Green Bay. Here's a toughie.
And up at Green Bay, I think the Redskins will win. I still think they have the defense.
They've had a tough time moving the ball on the ground, although Moses Denson, I thought, looked very good this week. You're picking Washington, though?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go with Green Bay. Oakland at Denver.
I'm a Raider man, right? I'll go with Oakland.
I thought you liked Denver, too.
Oh, I used to like it.
All right, I like Oakland also. Buffalo at New England. What do you think about that one? Both teams are 6-1.
I picked Buffalo the last time. I'm going to go with the Bills to win another one.
Who won the first one?
Buffalo.
All right, then I'll be stuck with New England, but I don't mind that at all. At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happens in all those games. I'm Pat Summerall.
And I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.